In 1983, Shirley Caesar married the love of her life. 31 years later, she buried him, and everything seemed to splinter. A bitter estate fight pitted her stepchildren against her. Cruel fake stories claimed she had died. Even some of her siblings said she'd used their mother's suffering to build her name. The woman who gave away 75% of her earnings to help other people could not purchase peace for herself. Her greatest loss was not her voice, it was family. Shirley Ann Caesar was born October 13, 1938, in Durham, North Carolina, the 10th of 13 children. The Caesars lived with almost nothing. Little food, few clothes, no space to breathe. Her father, James Caesar, worked long hours in a tobacco factory and sang weekends with the gospel quartet, the Just Come Four, a neighborhood favorite for his deep tone. But no matter how he sang, it never stretched far enough for 8 girls and 5 boys. Her mother, Hallie, often called Hallie, was partially disabled. Still, she somehow fed 13 children on close to nothing. Shirley learned early, survival isn't comfort, it's sacrifice and steel. Everything shifted in 1945. Shirley was 7 when her father collapsed from a brain seizure and died where he fell. Childhood ended in that instant. With 13 mouths to feed, Shirley made a decision. She would sing in churches to bring money home. At 7, she became the one others depended on. There was no room for tears, no space to grieve. Her voice became both work and lifeline. By 10, baby Shirley was shaking church walls with a powerful alto. She stood on boxes so people could see her. Grown men wept when she sang. At 14, she had no stable home base. She crisscrossed the Jim Crow South alone, sleeping in segregated bus stations with a cherry Coke and a hamburger her mother had packed. Some preachers handed her 50 cents after a week of services while pocketing hundreds. She kept singing, stomping time, moving crowds, turning every program into an electric roar. That voice was all she owned. Meanwhile, her mother's condition worsened. Hallie's leg was paralyzed. She could not walk without help. By 12, Shirley was her mother's full-time caregiver, changing clothes, supporting her to stand, then sprinting to churches to keep the lights on. She did this for over 30 years. Even after she became famous, she never hired out the care. It was always Shirley. Her mother's pain broke her heart and forged her will. In 1956, she graduated Hillside High School and started college to study business. Then something happened in a typing test. She heard a voice call her name. When she asked a classmate if she'd spoken, the answer was no. Later the same day, the voice returned, louder. "Behold, I have called you from your mother's womb, and I have anointed your lips to preach the gospel." Shaken to her core, she left school immediately. Professors were stunned. Family didn't understand. But Shirley believed the call was God's, so she obeyed. On August 15, 1958, at 19, Shirley joined the Caravans, among the nation's premier gospel groups. She walked up to Albertina Walker and said she could sing every part, and then proved it. On stage, she didn't just sing. She moved, shouted, wept. Her style rewrote the rule book. At her first session on December 30, 1958, engineers blinked at the power of her sound. The Caravans broke fast, 50,000 records that year. Yet Shirley often slept on buses and skipped meals. Her first record had come earlier, 1951, at 13, "I'd Rather Have Jesus." Labels said she was too young to know pain. She sold it herself, traveling the Carolinas with a one-legged preacher, singing in barns and tiny churches for $5 or $15 at most. Fewer than 1,000 copies sold. She thought about quitting. She didn't. From 1958 to 1966, the Caravans toured the Deep South, 300 shows a year, mostly segregated. White gospel groups pulled $800 a night. The Caravans got $150. In 1963, in Birmingham, Alabama, they were turned away from 17 hotels and slept on the bus. In Mississippi and Georgia, she saw police hoses used on black audiences. In Montgomery, bottles flew at the stage. She carried those scenes into her songs, coded messages of civil rights grit. Her voice became a weapon of hope. By 1966, exhaustion and inequity collided. She made $75 a week while men earned 5 times more. She asked Albertina for creative control and a fair share. Even when offered $100 and 5% royalties, she walked. Magazines warned she'd fail. Record executives said a woman couldn't sell without a group. Even Mahalia Jackson told her not to go solo. Shirley signed with Hob Records for $50,000, the biggest contract to that point for a black female gospel artist. Her first solo album, My Testimony, 1967, sold 15,000 copies its first year. Critics were unsure, raw, painful, too personal. Some said, not Christian enough. Shirley kept telling the truth, and people listened. A new gospel audience formed around Candor in 1969. She reunited with Reverend James Cleveland. In one church service, they improvised an entire song. The room shook. The live recording became one of gospel's most powerful documents. Cleveland, who had worked with Aretha Franklin, said Shirley's preaching and singing were one voice. Still, inequity stuck. She earned 30 to 40% less than men. Producers told her to tone it down. Contracts required male approval before releasing songs. Posters focused on how she looked, not how she sounded. Some concerts billed her as special guest, while she was the reason the building was full. She pushed on. A 1969 Grammy nomination looked like her moment. Then she lost. Years later, it emerged that votes had been rigged. A competitor's manager sat on the panel and had money riding on the result. Shirley finally won in 1971, but that earlier wound lingered. The Grammys changed major processes in 2021 after scandals like hers. Also in 1969, she hit The Mike Douglas Show. Viewers expected jokes and soft ballads. Shirley brought the full fire of black church worship, song, shout, tambourine. The switchboard melted, 3,000 calls in hours. Some were angry, others amazed. For many white viewers, it was their first encounter with the weight of that worship tradition. In 1972, she recorded Put Your Hand in the Hand of the Man from Galilee, a song first popularized by Anne Murray in 1970. Shirley's version, soulful and blazing, won a Grammy for Best Soul Gospel. Performance, her first. Traditionalists raged, too pop, too showy. She stood her ground. She was still singing for God. That win made history, one of the first true crossovers for a black gospel artist. In a secular room full of pop and R&B stars, she began her speech, "First, I want to thank God." The room paused. 3 years later, 1975, she toured West Africa. One outdoor service drew 250,000 people. Some had walked days on scraps of food to be there. The poverty shocked her. It echoed Jim Crow memories. On stage, she began to pray aloud, adding pleas about hunger and suffering. The tour was chaotic. Funds paid in local currency couldn't be exchanged, and at one point, her team lacked fare to fly home. It changed her. She carried global poverty into her preaching back in the States. Her calling was wider than music. In 1969, she launched Shirley Caesar Outreach Ministries in Durham after a jolt. At a Florida Thanksgiving table, laughing and eating, she clicked the news and saw starving children in Tennessee, bellies distended like the kids she'd seen in Africa. She started giving 50% of concert earnings to food and shelter programs. It nearly broke her financially. She refused government funds, borrowing against future shows to keep programs alive. Friends called it foolish. She called it obedience. In the late 1970s, she stunned the church world. She partnered with secular artists. Her 1978 album, Message for the People, married gospel and funk. Pastors fumed. Fans loved it. It sold over 1 million. Her sales jumped 400%. R&B singers started calling. Gospel executives took notes. Distribution expanded. Even secular radio spun her. She opened the door. Others walked through. In 1983, Shirley married Bishop Harold Ivory Williams. She was 44. The wedding party topped 100. Her ring had 9 diamonds, one for each spiritual gift. Fans feared she'd quit to become the pastor's wife. She did not. Together, they co-pastored a 25th member church in Raleigh. She vowed to sing and preach. From 1984 to 1986, she won back-to-back Grammys, one with Al Green for Salin in 1985, and another in 1986 for Martin, and triggered whispers that awards were politics, not purity. By then, she'd been nominated 17 times, more than any gospel artist to that point. She didn't argue. She worked. That same year she married, she nearly died. In early 1983, her tour bus hit ice. She blacked out and said she glimpsed the other side. Paramedics pulled her back. That brush with death birthed, "Jesus, I Love Calling Your Name." It became one of America's most requested funeral songs. For Shirley, it was testimony. Every time she sang it, she returned to that crash. In 1985, during peak fear about AIDS, her church opened its doors. Others went quiet or shut people out. She did not. Her congregation visited hospitals, helped with funerals, even offered home care. Nearly half of Americans then believed AIDS was punishment. Families threatened to leave. Death threats came. She stood firm. Jesus loves everyone. Between 1985 and 1989, they quietly helped more than 200 families. By 1989, she was honored Stellar Awards Artist of the Decade and almost didn't make the stage. Years of 150 shows annually plus preaching had scarred her voice. Nodules, steroid shots, pain. Live in Chicago, the album that helped seal the award, was recorded through that pain. Her speech was barely audible and deeply moving. Even weak, she gave thanks. In December 1991, she released He's Working It Out For You, 9 tracks, 44 minutes, topping the gospel charts and hitting over 95 on R&B. Gospel was shifting fast. Shirley still led. The voice was strong, the message steady. She didn't sing about herself, she sang the truth. In 1999, the U.S. government honored her with the National Heritage Fellowship, a $10,000 award. Washington, D.C. ceremony, the nation's highest recognition for traditional artists. She didn't lecture about racism or industry politics. Her presence said enough, a woman who sang since 12, now honored by the nation. In 1996, she sang at the Grammys with Whitney Houston and CeCe Winans, A City Called Heaven, and other gospel staples in a medley. Whitney was tracing her gospel roots. Shirley helped her shine. That same year, they joined the Georgia Mass Choir for He's All Over Me. It wasn't just a song. It was a bridge, generation to generation. In 2016, something wild happened. A clip of her 1988 sermon song, Hold My Mule, went viral. A DJ looped her joy-filled Thanksgiving roll call, beans, greens, potatoes, tomatoes, lamb, rams, hogs, dogs, into the You Name It challenge. Millions of views, dance videos, memes. Shirley was 78 on a cruise when a young member showed her. She didn't even fully grasp it. Then suddenly, she was famous all over again. That same year, she released It's All Right, It's Okay with Anthony Hamilton, a song about depression and emotional struggle. For the first time, she sang openly about mental health, raw, direct, lifeline. She performed it on BET's Celebration of Gospel. In 2017, she received the Grammy Lifetime Achievement Award, her 11th Grammy honor. It came as nasty rumors spread online, videos claiming throat cancer, claims she was dying. She answered with humor and steel. Unless I'm a living dead person, I don't know anything about it. She asked fans to stop spreading lies. On July 4, 2014, while the nation watched fireworks, Shirley lost the man beside her for 31 years. Bishop Harold Ivory Williams died at 93. They married June 27, 1983. He was already a widower. They were co-pastors and music partners. He played and sang on Stand Still and Shirley Caesar Live. After his passing, Shirley stood alone at home and in the pulpit, leading their 1-500-member Mount Calvary Word of Faith Church. Thousands honored him over 2 days. For her, the silence afterward was deafening. Grief was followed by conflict. In 2015, a painful estate battle erupted. Her stepchildren, Harold Jr. and Hope, whom she had helped raise, disputed how things should be handled. Whispers said they didn't want her to receive what they believed belonged to them. It touched everything: church buildings, personal assets, and the legacy of the bishop's 37-year leadership of Mount Calvary Holy Churches of America. The worst wound was the distance from the children she had called blessings. Family pain wasn't new. After Shirley Caesar died, some reports say 1989, others 1991, old tensions flared. Shirley had been her mother's caregiver for decades. After the funeral, some siblings accused her of using their mother's struggles for career gain and complained about money. Even a tribute album sparked fights over royalties. Now all 12 of her siblings are gone. Shirley is the only one left, another private ache. She never had biological children. She tried, she prayed, she saw doctors. Nothing changed. In 2000, she finally spoke publicly about infertility. It rattled her faith and left a grief she hid from the congregation for years. She turned pain into purpose, starting programs for couples facing infertility, support, even help with adoption costs. She called her stepchildren her miracle children. Love helped, but the ache of never being mother in the traditional sense never fully left. In 2024, the world nearly mourned her again. Social media exploded with false claims that Shirley had died or was hospitalized with throat cancer. She was 85, very much alive in Raleigh, forced to film a video to prove it. Strangers even showed up at her home, thinking it was a memorial. Fake obituaries spread. YouTube posts, misused photos, claiming they showed her final moments. All lies. The fear, shock, and invasion were real. The hoaxes didn't stop. Early 2025, another story popped up, that she had collapsed on stage and was in intensive care. Some outlets even ran with it at first. Gospel pages filled with prayers. Crowds gathered to mourn. Her team posted more videos, alive, well, still working. Another wave of rumor designed to confuse and scare the people who loved her. Back in 2018, she faced a scandal that nearly ruined her name. A claim spread that she had taken $2.3 million intended for the church. It began with a former treasurer and supposedly leaked records. The numbers, it was said, didn't add up. Funds were being moved into private accounts. None of it held. An independent audit by Ernst & Young showed 98% of donations went exactly where they should. In hard seasons, Shirley had even used her own money to cover ministry shortfalls. In 2020, bloggers accused her of stealing songs, naming No Charge and Hold My Mule, even pointing to a Martha Williams track and claiming 85% overlap. At 81, fighting to re-energize her career, she now faced legal threats and sleepless nights. She nearly walked away. Attorneys proved the material was original or properly licensed. She was cleared, but scars remained. Then the wildest rumor of all, a 2024 will appeared online claiming she had only $2 million in assets, when most knew her worth is closer to $16 million. The fake omitted family and showed odd transfers to hidden companies. Worst of all, a man stepped forward claiming to be her secret son, waving letters and demanding a DNA test to claim part of her estate. Shirley called it a heartbreaking lie and a warning about how social media can unravel lives. Through it all, she kept showing up for her church. In 2025, at 86, she's still leading Mount Calvary. She preaches less often but remains present. More than 2,000 attend Sundays. Some drive from Virginia and South Carolina to hear her on First Lady Sundays. Despite scares and smears, her energy has not faded. The congregation is growing, not shrinking. Her members call it a miracle. She has shaped voices beyond her own. She mentored Yolanda Adams and Kirk Franklin, urging them to stay anchored. When Adams was offered $2.3 million for a secular deal, Shirley said no, that it could damage her anointing. When Franklin was offered $5 million to work with Sean Diddy Combs, she said the same. He later told the story at his Walk of Fame speech, "Save some for the young people." Despite 11 Grammys and a net worth of $16 million, Shirley chose a different path, giving away about 75% of concert income. For years, she's donated over $350,000 annually to shelters, music programs, and ministries serving thousands. She still lives in the same Raleigh home she's had for over 20 years. She owns a small Durham store. Every bit of profit goes to help families during the holidays. By the math, experts say she could have been worth over $40 million if she had kept it all. In the end, Shirley Caesar's story is not simply about a once-in-a-generation voice. It's about a child who fed a family with a song, a woman who held a mother upright for over 30 years, a pastor who opened church doors when others closed them, a giver who chose people over wealth, and a believer who kept going when rumors, lawsuits, and grief tried to still her. Her greatest miracle is not fame, It's faithfulness. And that is worth more than 16 million, more than 11 Grammys, more than anything.